Hello and welcome to the 19th chapter of the course. In this chapter, we will be going over one tournament from Oneh1tWonder, Michael Cano. And he will be joining us and sharing his thought process and input. Hello, Michael.
Hey, what's up? Great to be here. Thanks for including me.
Of course. We'll be looking at all the VP hands or the hands where we were in the big blind. We will not be looking at hands we folded because that just doesn't make too much sense and would take way too long of a time.
Perfect.
So, first hand that we have is 3-4 offsuit. It's the very beginning of the tournament. So under the gun opens and small blind calls. And I think I would end up calling here. I think you actually folded, but I just would end up calling, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like the type of hand that's perfect for defending against under the gun. We're going to be live. We're going to be able to make some strong, secretive hands. I mean, I don't love that it's 2.5x. Again, anything smaller seems clear. Maybe if I cover both players, I would also call for sure. But yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not going to be...
already.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not going to be like some super exciting, printing call or anything, but I do think I would have called. Okay, next hand, we have ace-5 off. We open from the bottom. Yeah, seems very standard. At this stack size, PKOs just don't really affect our decisions too much. And on the flop, going for fairly large c-bet. Yeah, against the small blind, I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just figured we're going to have offsuit 8x that small blind never has. I also just want to size up a little bit so that maybe offsuit Broadway and just get an easy time defending.
Yep, I think it makes a lot of sense. Ace-9 suited, we of course call the big blind, not the type of hand we want to be 3-betting. All these hands so far look very standard. That's why just not much to go into.
Yeah. Just getting warmed up.
Yes. Okay, we're ace-kings, button calls, flop, check. Yeah, so what is your strategy on this flop?
It's kind of an interesting one because cutoff is a pretty short stack. So I think my range will be even wider than usually. So on like ace plus high card, I would probably check pretty often, but if I bet, probably going rather large.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. Flop goes check, and on the turn you go for a small sizing. Yeah, I think this is very good. We want to start value betting. We have a lot of equity to improve against ace-x. Opponent calls, and then...
The river gets a little awkward though, but yeah, I figured now I still face like small ace-x.
Yeah, I don't think we get to go for two streets here, but seems a little bit too thin. Especially because I think on this flop, people are just going to be checking back a lot of like their low suited aces and so on. So yeah, I think we just end up value cutting a bit too much. Check against Jack 10. Yep, looks pretty standard from both players. Okay, 10-9 suited. We overcall, looks good. 10-8, it's not 10-9. Why did I say 10-9? It's 10-8, but whatever. Same kind of hand for this scenario. Against the fairly large c-bet, we just want to be calling. Don't see much else to do.
Yeah, tough to find raising overall right on this section.
Okay. So on the 3 turn, yeah. Do you think we could have any leads on the turn?
I doubt that these like 4-5, sure, but then it also went half pot. So I think I'm folding 4-5. Maybe if I have a spade, I call. And then I also don't I'm not calling queen 3 probably, and unless there's unless it's spades. So yeah, I think because of pre-flop and just the big flop size, it doesn't really improve me too much.
Yep, I agree. In turn, we just have to fold against this big sizing. Maybe continue with combo draws, but this weak flash draw, just not much it can do. Ace Jack against the limp. So do you want to talk about your sizing pre-flop here?
I mean, looking at it now, I wouldn't mind just going even slightly larger, just adding one big blind on top. Wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think we should go slightly larger when we're the big blind and we are like relatively short stacked. So at this point, our bounty is worth like 15 big blinds or so. The starting stack is 5K and the big blind is 18. We're very early on, so like 1/4 of a starting stack. So like 1,200 or so.
Yep, perfect.
So yeah, once our bounty is worth like 15 and we have 50, it's a fairly large number compared to our stack. So I think sizing up a little bit and giving worse odds to our opponent
Yeah, I
makes
totally
sense.
agree.
On the flop, yep, c-betting on the larger side makes sense. And he calls.
Yeah, I'm just going to be all over those big cards, all the Broadways.
Yeah, I think the turn check looks good. On the river, you go for a half pot sizing. I think we would want to size down here.
So,
So I think we mostly want to have smaller sizings because a lot of our strong flush draws will just continue betting on the turn.
that's true, sure. Yeah, if I have the ace of clubs, probably I'm gonna be doing something on the turn.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's something like ace queen, for example, or maybe or ace king or whatever, we're gonna be betting on the turn very, very often with a high club. So I think this will mostly be like jacks with a club, maybe, or something like that, or some sort of 10 of clubs.
Yeah, I guess my reasoning was probably since the player limped, he's maybe a weaker player, and wanted to make sure maybe we get a fold from like a 10, a king. I guess if he has some pocket pair with a club, he's calling anyways. I guess just trying to apply extra pressure, which did not work at all.
And how did that work out for you? Yeah, of course, we fold against the jump. Right, next up, we have ace queen suited. And I think this is one of the first interesting hands that we see. We have 25 blinds on the cutoff. And what is your thought process here regarding your action?
So yeah, we already lost a lot of chips. We are down to like 2K out of a 5K starting stack. And as you previously mentioned, we can maybe assign like 15 blinds already to our bounty. So whenever we enter the pot, everyone has this huge overlay of rejamming white against us, 3-bet calling white. And generally, of course, I still want to play a bunch of hands because, yeah, I'm in late position. Maybe I can steal some blinds, get into favorable spots. But then I think the majority, or at least a large portion of hands, doesn't want to raise, face a 3-bet, play a very big pot. So from what I've seen, we can apply this kind of defensive limping strat that enables us to be a bit more, and then throwing in the traps like this may also work out extremely well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. This is one of the spots that we looked at in the limping chapter of the course. And basically, in these situations where our bounty is worth a lot of our stack and we are late position, we pretty much want to be limping our entire range. Want to play limp and maybe some jams. So yeah, I think your thought process is very solid here, and I would be limping as well.
Yeah, very good point by you. If the bounty wasn't as huge of a portion as a stack, then I think we can go back to raising. If for example, instead of maybe like close to our entire stack, if it's only worth like a quarter, once we hit like 25 or over, probably we can just raise.
Yep, exactly. And we can indeed see that we just want to play limps and then have a couple of jumps with some like offsuit ace-x and middling pocket pairs. But yeah, we don't really want to be raising. We just want to be limping.
Yeah, and same for jamming. I think once the bounty isn't so valuable, then we aren't getting paid as much. So it doesn't make as much sense to jam just ace queen off right away.
Yeah, exactly. So we limp, which is very, very good. Button over limps, small blind over limps, big blind checks. Awesome. We get to the flop, and yeah, I think just we get to check a lot here. And turn go for this kind of sizing. So I would just size up on the turn. I really don't think anyone is checking a jack.
Agreed.
For example, the button, I don't think he's going to check back a jack on the flop, and I don't think the blinds will check a jack on the turn. So I think it's kind of like very free for us to start sizing up and charging draws and weaker queen X.
Yeah, the hand is for sure worth a little bit more. I wasn't sure. Four-way limp pot, unknown territory.
No, of course. Just I could be very wrong, obviously, but just my thoughts here. And yeah, river value bet seems good, and we get 2 folds. Okay, next up we have Jack 10 suited, where we face an under the gun open against a 2.5x sizing. And our decision here is fairly interesting. In a normal tournament, this would be a fairly easy call, but the problem here in the PSKO is that on one hand, the opening range is going to be much tighter. On the other hand, everyone behind us covers both the opener and us by a big margin, so we're just a lot more likely to get squeezed.
Yeah.
Am I right? Is that your thought process as well here?
Yeah, precisely. I think what at least like the solver or some ideas are to combat this is to still call pretty wide, but then just also being wary of trapping enough to kind of maybe protect hands like these. When I look around the table, for example, I'm pretty short. There's this other short player opening. I really, really want to play against him because otherwise I don't have any shot at a bounty. So I think it's good to take this spot in position. I'll say relatively wide, but then it will be also kind of traps should work out relatively well.
Yes, indeed. So we end up calling very, very wide here, as you mentioned. So Jack-10 suited, not really close. We even call like 5-4 suited, even some 9-7 suited kind of hands. And the reason this happens is that, as you said, we are incentivized to play against the opener because it's one of the only guy we cover. But in order to be able to call these hands, we need to be protected from squeezes by calling the top of our range as well. So yeah, we don't really 3-bet almost anything. We just play a pure range call.
To be honest, I would not have found all these hands, like a 9-7, 10-8, and he's 4-5. But yeah, cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just important to remember that we need to have these like top range calls here. And it's not just a matter of, we want to have a balanced strategy to not get exploited. No, it's because people behind will squeeze here. So trapping just becomes higher EV.
And maybe also just, it's going to be, so even though under the gun is tight, there still will be a bunch of folds if we 3-bet. And of course, if we have like kings, queens, aces, good to keep his lower hands in.
Yep. So button calls, big blind squeezes, under the gun calls, and of course we fold. Under the gun shouldn't really be calling anything here, right? Just jam or fold.
Yeah, it's a little bit tempting because it's so small, but our hand just feels like dominated on all sides, and it's impossible to play flops. It feels like.
For sure. Next we have king 7 on the big 10-7. Why do I keep misreading the hands? No, this is 10-7. There's no king here. Okay, so 10-7 on the big blind. I think against the min raise, I would just call here.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, there's no reason for us to play tighter than normal chip EV range. If anything, we should be defending wider because he's opening wider.
Yeah, it should be very wide.
Mm-hmm. But these kind of hands, I think, are fairly easy to miss when playing multiple tables.
Yeah, it's probably like this is still an early day session, loading up tables, and this gets a little bit lost.
This hand very, very similar to the ace queen suited that we saw, where we just want to be limping our range. Pretty much nothing has changed from before. So we limp. And it goes 4-way again. On the flop, you go for a large sizing. So, first of all, when our bounty is worth so much, I don't think there's a wrong way to play this hand. But from what I've seen in like multi-way pots, we want to be using just smaller sizings. And this looks like a board where we target a lot of auto folds with a small sizing. But yeah, I obviously no clue about 4-way PKO linked pots.
I was thinking similarly, but then it kind of, I don't know, this hand just felt all right.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just put money in whatever. Nothing bad can happen.
Tough to say.
Yeah, nothing bad can happen. And everyone folds. Okay, next up, we get aces. And we open. And buttons.
Finally, somebody squeezes, thankfully.
Yeah, finally. So, of course, we just want to be jamming here. We don't want to do anything silly like calling. We have basically no fold equity, so we definitely just want to jam.
This goes for a bunch of these PKO spots when, even though there might be some weak hands in villain's range, if he's never folding, just don't slow play.
Yeah, exactly. And you also don't have like bluff jams like ace-5 suited and stuff here. We just go very linearly with your value. Next we have some 9-4 where, of course, we fold.
It's the big blind, sure.
King 6 suited, we open from the cutoff. Yeah, so here, even though we're still covered by 2 players behind, our bounty compared to our stack size just isn't really worth much. Therefore, we play a range that is much closer to a normal non-PSKO situation.
Yeah, I agree. And At least we do cover the big blind, which is nice.
Yep, small range. C-bet, and we get it through.
Here's what you think about this one. This is maybe a little bit, I don't know, cover one player. Kind of feels like a pocket pair, not interacting too much with the opening. I think this is a lot better than like 9-8 suited, for example, which is going to be more dominated. Obviously, like, if you you can flop a straight with 9-8 and be just dead. But here it's a little bit more forgiving, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think this is a decent hand to call. We are somewhat protected because the opener covers everyone else. So the stack size behind have to be somewhat wary of their squeeze frequencies. And yeah, overall, we'll also not be 3-betting as many value hands as we would normally. Because obviously he will jam more and we'll just have to get it in and say a hand like pocket nines here. We just want to call, right?
Yeah, I would call.
So this allows us to call a bit wider, and I think this hand makes a lot of sense to call with, yeah. Sadly, the small blind jumps. And you should have called. Why did you fold?
Look at this flop.
Yeah. Jack 3, big blind. Nothing exciting. Folding against an open. Again, I think I might be tempted to call here against the min raise when we cover.
I did recently run something. I think it was probably against Atov, it might have been, and Jack Deuce was the bottom against cutoff in the exact same spot. So yeah, this does not seem far away at all.
Yeah. Again, these kind of hands won't be amazing, like super printing calls.
Yeah.
But I think we get to pitch in. Okay, so we have the same guy opening and the button calling. And we have king queen on the small blind. So what are your thoughts here?
Well, I remember generally the idea was out of position, a lot of offsuit hands, particularly the better ones, may want to thin the field. But then there's also the reasoning, the other way towards calling would be, if I squeeze here, it's not like I can make ace queen and ace king fold. So perhaps it's even better to just flat, hope to flop a big pair and get it in against like king 10, king jack, queen jack. So we can maybe check the sim.
Yeah, of course.
Because I can find arguments both ways for sure.
Yeah, just to share my thoughts before looking at the sim. So I was thinking that this is the kind of hand that we kind of want to call because we dominate a lot of hands in both players' ranges. And at the same time, we can't really 3-bet call against the opener, but 3-bet folding when he jumps a bunch of pocket pairs seems a bit awkward as well. So, my default would be to end up calling here so that we keep in all the dominant hands, but I generally tend to be a bit more call happy than I should.
Yeah, no, but if I recall correctly, that's the correct way. And it's also a very playable hand because it's basically a no-gapper and maybe just squeezing some ace-10 off or even ace-jack off is going to be better.
And let's see. So, yeah, we can see that our 3-betting range is basically super linear and it's only hands that can just get it in against the opener.
King 10 suited is still is getting it in or not?
Well, mostly, I guess, anyway. So let's see. After he jumps, then... Oh, wow, we're folding the... Yeah, but the opener is folding like nines and stuff like that, like eights.
If you adjust this, yeah.
Yeah, so I would think we mostly get to get it in with hands against a more reasonable jamming range, but maybe not. But yeah, so I guess the thought process is that King Queen doesn't really fold out many hands that are better.
Yeah, I get that logic. And then...
Yeah, and then I guess also the button ends up calling our squeeze a lot. So once we squeeze, the button ends up continuing with like almost everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I guess it doesn't happen to the extent, but
no, I agree. I think they will fold more.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, if it doesn't give us value with like king X suited, king jack off.
Yeah, then probably
not sure if that's even so amazing.
Yeah, then I think king queen probably becomes even slightly worse because now it's supposed to call always suited kings. I think people are way more likely to call 5-4 suited than king 4 suited.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, because the button is supposed to call so much, we much rather lean towards suited hands to squeeze with here.
Yeah,
you can see like almost everything with 3-bet is suited.
Yeah, I think good logic.
We squeeze.
But also good to see it is still allowed, but yeah, not the preferred option.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, all these hands that are somewhat reasonable will be very close in EV.
Yeah.
like obviously king, queen, ace, jack, ace 10, it doesn't really matter too much what you do as long as you don't jam, of course. So we go 10 big blinds, he jams, and we just have to fold. Not much we can do here. Next up, we have ace, king suited. We go for a squeeze. Yep, I think a 3-bet not squeeze. Yeah, looks very, very reasonable.
Yeah, sizing up a little bit. Yeah, I think generally as a smaller stack, but then also if our ranges maybe is a little bit more polar, makes sense to size up a little bit, go beyond the standard 3x.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. With jack 4, just nothing. We had an open and a 3-bet, so we have to fold. Ace king against an open and a 3-bet with 30 big blinds seems like a crystal clear fist bump monitor jam. We get the folds. So in this plenary blind spot, how do you adjust with your range compared to a normal non-PSKO tournament?
From the BVB sims I've run, I've really struggled to find much open raising at all. So it usually always becomes quite a defensive strategy, where you just can simplify it to just limping your whole range, and then for something like 30 blinds, it then goes into limp calling and limp jamming. There's no really fancy clicking. I think once we hit maybe 50 bigs and over, you will then see still like range limping to begin with, and then like fighting back with pretty large limp raises. I think if you go deeper, I mean, I saw some like 5x like spots where you limp, big blind go 3.5 blinds, and you just make it like 17 blinds if you're deep enough. Or at 50, probably closer to like 14, 15.
Yep.
But yeah, pretty large.
Perfect. So we limp and ISO to 3 big blinds. I think I would fold. I would call against the sizing fold if you went a bit larger.
Yeah.
I think 3 big blinds is a little bit on the smaller side, but obviously, again, seems like a super marginal kind of
one
hand.
of these.
Pocket sevens, 33 big blinds. So at this point, our bounty is just the starting one still, right? Yeah. So it's just not really worth much. It's worth maybe like 8 big blinds or 7-ish. So yeah, we definitely want to be raising and not limping from early position.
Yeah, I agree. I think generally in EP, you usually don't want to play as many hands anyways. And then, I'm also just playing a raising strat.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. On the flop, we go for...
Yeah, this will be interesting.
Yeah, so I think c-betting this hand is fine. King high boards are really good for the opener because we have all the like king jack off, king 10 off, king queen off kind of hands that they don't. And especially in this case, our opening range is going to be tighter than a normal tournament, so it makes sense for us to c-bet more because our range tighter, their range wider.
Yeah, I would say by no means a range bet, but if I have like a jack 10 of hearts, if I have some backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and this hand just felt like I have 3-2 straight, 3-2 flush, I have a pair, they're going to be wide, maybe I can get it through already, maybe I can get a turn that I can bluff. But yeah, definitely a little bit awkward.
Yep, this is not the turn though, I agree with the check for sure.
But river is...
Yeah, so the river ace is actually pretty interesting in terms of what we get to do with our hand. Because we do get to fold a bunch of, for example, 8x or maybe something like queen 9 of spades. Potentially, but we also need to think, what do our bluffs look like? Like, what kind of hands would we bluff if not this? And to be honest, it's just tough to find. We don't have 6-7 suited, for example. We don't have like 9-7 suited. Even these hands, even if we didn't have them, would probably bet the turn. So I do think that this is the kind of hand that we should end up bluffing simply because just don't have other bluffs.
Yeah, it's nice because, all the 10-9, Jack-9, we're betting. It's really tough to find air balls. And then maybe a hand like this even has some merit because we're blocking like A7 of spades. I think ultimately I was like hoping, he still has some 5x. Maybe he has like pocket 6s, 4s with a spade. Maybe I can win. And I guess it felt a little bit weird. I'm bluffing 7s to fold out at 8, but that's probably not good thinking. It's just I'm gonna have like all sorts of ace 4 of hearts, ace 3 of hearts, ace 9 of hearts, ace 7 of hearts. So I can definitely, I don't know, like we can go like 2/4. Oh, sorry, 2/3.
Yeah, exactly. And we end up losing to an 8, which is pretty sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think simply because we just don't have other bluffs. Like we don't have lower pocket pairs, not many lower pocket pairs, because we don't open them pre-flop.
Oh.
A6 against an open and a call.
The opening stack is pretty awkward, but
yeah, exactly. I think this is a fairly awkward spot. So, what are your thoughts with regards to defending here when we have the very short stack opening?
It's so weird because I would expect like a ton of ace-6 just to jam. He's gonna get so much value. I don't think he's gonna have like ace 10 off through ace king off, even like ace queen suited. Maybe he just jams. I do a little bit struggle to put him on a hand.
Yeah.
And then of course I would much rather have just a wheel ace, and this could be like a black sheep fold with the ace-6 off, especially. Then it's also min raise, cutoff is maybe a little bit wide.
Yeah, so generally, of course, we want to be defending very wide against these super short stacks in PKO tournaments. And the cutoff range, as you said, is probably going to be very wide. And I think you brought up a very good point about his range just not having much ace-6. So the main reason you want to fold this offsuit ace-6 from the big blind is that you're just dominated. But in this case, you're not really dominated. Yeah, you're dominated by pocket aces. But he's going to have like queens, kings, jacks potentially, and maybe some, I don't know, king, jack off kind of hands. So I do think that calling this a6 here becomes better than it normally is. Like, for example, if he had like 15 or 16 big blinds, then I would just always fold.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On the flop, yeah, just checks down overall.
You're doing anything on the turn with the ace of diamonds or something?
No.
I mean, the 8 pairing is a little bit tempting, but yeah, we just have equity, right?
Yeah, and you were going to have so many, like 6-7, 9-7, jack 9, jack 7, like so many draws here that I think ace-high just not interested in doing anything.
Yeah, but to be fair, I'm also a little bit surprised by king-queen, so I have no idea how to arrange him properly.
Yeah, king-queen was surprising, and 7's also a bit surprising, I think.
Yeah, I think can just click. I mean, he's so short, right? Bounce is basically worth his whole stack.
10-7, facing an open, we get to defend. We defend very wide here. And on the flop, you go for a check raise. So my thoughts here is that, okay, this is a decent hand to check raise with against a very small sizing. But once it goes for this even bigger than 1/3, I would start being a bit more selective and maybe go for like queen x and king x with a diamond.
Or like a 10-9 is going to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like 35%.
Yeah, so I think if you win small, this is perfectly fine. But when he goes for this larger sizing, I would just not raise this one. But it ends up working out, so what do I know?
No, obviously, if he had a jack, he would only bet 1 big blind, so 2.08 blind is always weak.
Yes, perfect. Nailed him. Ace-king, so you go for a jam here, and yeah, I think at this stack size, we just want to have a bunch of jams, especially against the super wide range.
Yeah, I think we're short enough that we get enough calls, and yeah, he has 200 bigs, so I'm hoping he's gambling.
Yep, and he folds. 10-3 off. Yes, we are folding. Jack 8 off. Let's see. Folds close to the small blind. Similar spot as before, right?
Yeah, I would just not raise. It makes life easy, and it seems to be in line with the results I've seen.
Would you have any jams here?
You mean the as an open jam?
Yeah.
I mean, the smallest pairs come to mind, but no, probably those I would also rather limp jam.
Yeah, I agree. I think when our bounty is so small, we have starting bounty, which is worth, again, at this point, like, 6 big blinds or something? 5, maybe? 5.5, something like that. It's just not really gonna adjust our strategy, change our strategy too much. So, yeah, I think maybe, as you said, some of the lowest pocket pairs, but not much.
And what's also good, though, is it's not like we will limp and then he jams over us, which would suck for, like, having deuces. So we can still get in the limp jam.
Exactly, yeah. So check the flop. Yeah, this should be a very high check frequency.
Yeah, I think monotone connected is dangerous out of position.
Just back, we go for a loud sizing. Yeah, looks good. Seems pretty standard. Okay, so now we have ace-10 on the cutoff. You go for a limp. So if you want to explain your thoughts here.
So usually when I decide to limp, I'm going to consider how wide do I want to play. So here my thinking was, because the big blind is so short, maybe I want to VPip a little bit wider than usually. And then I figured maybe if I raise, I'm going to have to be slightly tighter. So I ended up limping. But then the other part is, of course, we aren't maybe that short anymore. And maybe the bounty compared to the earlier spot when we had 2K in chips with the ace queen suited or the ace 6 suited. Now it's quite a different spot where we have like over 5K in chips. So we have like close to 3x the stack. So yeah, probably not exactly the same.
Yeah, I agree. I can see the conflicting reasoning here, but on one hand, we want to VPip wide because of the big blind. But on the other hand, we're just not too concerned about our bounty because it's not worth much in comparison to our stack.
Yeah, it just means small blind button, they can't just go as crazy 3-bet calling us with random hands.
Yep. And we can see we just don't really have any limps here. Well, I mean, 2%, so no limps. And we get raised fairly wide. We get raised close to 40%.
Like that's 30... kind of a surprise. Like king deuce suited, any ace, all the 9x off. I think usually those are forced to fold. But yeah, I guess the big blind is enough of a driver.
Yeah, for sure. I think one reason that we get to raise so much is that the big stack behind, so the button, who has 150 big blinds, is actually not supposed to 3-bet almost anything. It's just supposed to call a lot. So what this does is that it allows for us to realize our equity very well.
Yeah,
see, the button is playing kind of a big blind range.
Yeah, Jesus.
Calling, Jack 3 suited, 6 3 suited, 8 4 suited, 10 8 off. Just a ridiculously wide calling range. And that's a function of our opening range being wide and the big blind being super short.
Yeah.
So after the button calls, the big blind is supposed to play like this. So jumps fairly tight. Against that, we get to jam almost or a very big portion of our opening range. So any pocket pair, any half decent hand. And when we jam, the button overcalls his entire calling range.
That's been nice.
Yeah. So a few things to say here is that I generally don't think people will be calling as wide on the button. But I also think they will be 3-betting a lot more pre-flop. And potentially jamming. Do you agree with this, or do you think this is a reasonable way for our opponents to play?
This sort of PKO strategy still feels somewhat new, that you trap so much that you call extremely wide. I would think wide, yes, but for example, I'm not sure if the offsuit 9x call, if these low suited Jack X will call. And yeah, I expect way more fast plays as well.
Yeah, I agree. So then we node locked a bit of the button strategy. So basically what we did is something like this, where we cut out a lot of the calls and we added a lot more 3-bets. I think this is still a fairly wide calling range. I would expect it to be even a bit tighter. So what this does for us is that we still get to open fairly wide. We still don't get to have limps. But if the button calls and then the big blind ends up jamming, you can see we go like slightly tighter. We fold a bit more with these kind of like suited 9x, some more with our offsuit ace-x, like before. We're getting in with like Jack 9 suited. So we go slightly tighter, and the tighter we make the button, the tighter we will have to rejam, and the tighter we'll have to open. Because again, the more aggressive he plays, the lower our equity realization, and the tighter he calls, the less we can rejam against the big blind jam. So in this case, we limped, and button called, and small blind called, and big blind checked. Perfect.
Sad time, so.
Yep. We break the flop, but turn looks amazing.
Again, here, sizing. I mean, I guess the ace is a little bit special because we're the only player that is going to have good ace-x. Or would you also just go a third here?
No, I think sizing up looks good. I think it's a turn where we want to go fairly polar.
Is it?
Like I think if you have like ace-4 suited or whatever, we just want to be checking still. So I like the big sizing, and we get raised, and now we're in a world of pain. Like actual world of pain.
I mean, should we fold now? So should we see what happens on the river? I think it's very scary because just logically, he overlimbed. It feels so counterintuitive to start bluffing here randomly, and I wouldn't even know with what kind of hands. Does it just pick a random 4-5?
Yeah,
it feels rather like an ace deuce, ace 8, maybe a slow play deuces on the flop. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I actually think I would rather just say
flop it now
and fold here. Maybe I shouldn't be swearing in the course. It's fine. But I think I should be. I think we should just be folding here because we're in a fairly complicated spot, and I think for someone unknown and potentially recreational, it's going to be very hard to find bluffs here against an uncapped range.
Yeah, in a way, it feels like full of shit, but then it's how do you bluff here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely could have saved myself the extra money.
Yeah, I guess we fold.
Maybe I was thinking, maybe I still have some equity. If river is maybe a king, a 10, I could save myself. But yeah, I agree. It's just so strong. Maybe just let it go.
10-8 blunders line. We face a jam. So let's see what that is bounty like. So he has started bounty. He jams 10 big blinds.
Okay.
And his bounty here is worth like 7-ish big blinds. Starting stack we said is 5k. We've been playing the tournament for a while. So I think like 1.4k is a fair valuation for the bounty.
Yeah. Pretty large.
Yeah. So we're like 19 big blinds to the pot. We need to call like 9 for 19. So we should be calling very wide. 10-8, I think, definitely makes it into that range.
Agreed.
Yep, so we call, and we end up winning against ace-3. So, yeah, fair fight, fair flip. We got him. Next, we have a hand that you end up not VPIPing. So let me find it from the list here. So this is same stage of the tournament. It's just as we busted the small blind. It falls to us on the bottom with 10-9 off, and now our bounty isn't the starting one anymore, which is something to consider. And we are covered by both small and the big blind. So what do you think about our strategy here? Like, how do you think we should be playing our range?
Did you say we don't have starting bounty anymore? We have like 1.5x bounty?
Yeah.
Okay, but we do have 6k, so it's still a little bit different than the very early limbs. So yeah, I was considering this as maybe the bottom VPIP hand. I think generally once you go towards 30 blinds, and maybe if the bounty is not crazy high, you can just play a raising strat and like not lose out on many VPIPs. But yeah, I probably felt like this was maybe thin, maybe not that necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see. We have this one. Here we go. So, we don't want to be having too many limbs, and we still get to play fairly wide. And I think the key here is to always keep in mind how large our bounty is compared to our stack. So as you said, here we have 1.5 starting bounties, which is worth like
2K
8 big blinds or so. So yes, this makes us play tighter than normally, but it doesn't make us play like super tight and like limping everything.
Yeah.
We still get to raise.
It's like a third of our stack compared to other spots where maybe it's close to the whole stack. It's not that drastic.
Exactly.
So yeah, we can definitely just still play 10-9 off.
Sorry?
So yeah, we can definitely still play 10-9 off.
10-9 off is, we can either limp or raise it. That's fine. What would be your approach here regarding all this mixing that we see?
I mean, looking at this, if limping is not clear, I would tend to raise. It seems like a slight favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is my approach too. In spots like this where there's so much mixing, I would rather raise because I think people in these PSKO tournaments tend to not be PIP enough.
Yeah, true. Oh wow, yeah.
So against our open, the small blind is supposed to call like Jack 3 suited and 6 3 suited and so many wild hands that I think most people usually don't find. So I do think I favor the raise over the limp when we see the options are super close. Then limping just doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, I like it.
Next up, we have some Jack 3 where we fold for sure. Then we have some Ace King where we go for an open. Yeah, so very similar to the spot before. Now, the blinds have increased, but that doesn't matter too much because our bound is worth less in chips, in blinds as well. And we're from an earlier position, so we pretty much just want to be raising here, right?
Yeah, I agree. We're not like generally as incentivized to play a wider range as compared to cutoff. So yeah, I'm just raising here.
Yep.
And yeah, I think we're also, the bounty is not valuable enough that we can just jam and get paid. So we still have to fight for the value.
And the big blind defense, and this is just going to be range bet board for us. We bet, he calls. A turn, I think we can go either way, right? Bet is fine, shake is fine.
Yeah, it's like bordering on a value bet, and maybe he has like 10-9 with a spade and jams it. We can just bet call, I guess.
Yeah. I would be bet calling for sure on the turn. And yeah, I said I think our hand doesn't really care what we do. And on the river, he goes for a half pot bet. And what do you think about calling here?
I think the good thing is unblocking the whole 4 through 10 area, as well as he can just have a random one spade hand. So there's straight draws, there's spade draws, straight draws. So perfect calling hand, I think.
Yep, I agree. This looks like a very good hand to call with. And our opponent had king 9 without a spade.
I mentioned straight and flush draws, but there's also hands like these, I guess.
Yeah, it unblocks king 9 off as well. Or well, I guess it blocks it. Bad bluff. Bad bluff catch. Okay, 10-3. Yes, we
having
fold
an
again.
easy time in the big blind.
Yep. So in between these hands, we have one other hand that you did in VPIP.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get to that. Right, where big blind is 300 now, as we can see up top, and we are under the gun with queen 9 suited. So in terms of the stack size behind, we don't really cover too many people. We cover the button, and that's it.
And it's not like the button is going to play against us often. Like he's not just calling that much against under the gun. He's not jamming much. So it's going to be tough to play this hand against him.
Yeah, I agree. So this definitely looks like a spot where we want to be playing fairly tight. And queen 9 suited is like barely an open in a normal tournament, right?
Yeah, it's probably with 20. I mean, I would open usually.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like the bottom hand we open doesn't really make too much money. So I think once we're covered by everyone and everyone is just more incentivized to play back at us, it does make sense for us to play a bit tighter. And let's look at this scene here.
Yeah, it's probably also a spot where just all the players get to 3-bet call, like all sorts of sort of broadways, pairs, or even if they just call like queen jack off on the button, not amazing.
Yeah.
Or well,
or on the cutoff, yeah, whatever. Yeah,
the cutoff, let's say.
So we get to only raise 14%, so super tight range. We don't raise like fives, we don't raise like the low suited aces. Way tighter than we would in a normal tournament. And queen 9 suited, jack 9 suited are also indeed folds.
Huh?
So yeah, very nice fold. And good reminder that we just have to play tighter in PSKOs when we're covered by everyone.